Tokoyami loses control of Dark Shadow, Himiko Toga sucks some blood, and Mr. Compress gets pancaked into the pavement. Did anybody else get goosebumps watching this episode? Goose pimples, the epic bumps. I definitely got them from watching this week's episode of My Hero Academia, which was action-packed from beginning to end. There were 3 major fights in this episode, and the best thing about this episode of My Hero Academia is that it finally focused on the teamwork of these characters. When they come together and combine their quirks together, they can do anything. And I'm glad that they took some of the sideline characters from the first 2 seasons and integrated them into this episode, like Shoji Mezzo, the Kakashi lookalike of the series, who has the weirdest freaking arms on the planet. I wanted to learn a lot more about this guy, and finally getting to see a little bit more of his powers and his resolve in this episode was certainly really welcome. That and the fact that we finally got to see Himiko Toga in action. We got to see what her quirks were for the very first time as she was battling against Ochaco and Tsuyu the Frog Girl. On top of all of that, we also have the introduction of a couple new members of the Vanguard Action Squad. We have Mr. Compress, who is a magician-like man who wears a very creepy mask, and he has the ability to basically compress people into little marbles. I'm not quite sure how this guy's powers actually work. Basically, he's just able to make things small, but it's really awesome, and he's a very fun character. Not necessarily a super powered, like super strong one. He's just kind of a really good strategist, and he's a magician, and he can escape from just about anything. Even Todoroki, who summons a friggin' iceberg in this episode. I'd be hard-pressed if I didn't talk about Fumikage Tokoyami in this episode, losing control of Dark Shadow. This was truly an epic moment, especially the look of Dark Shadow. It basically just transforms into a massive version of itself with these giant red glowing eyes. It's just metal in the best ways possible, and it's also incredibly destructive to the point where even some top-tier heroes would probably have trouble against it. However, it does have one glaring weakness, and of course that is light. And Deku and Shoji actually team up together, where Deku rides on his back while Shoji runs away, duplicating arms from his body and using those as a lure to bring Dark Shadow into the battle of Shoto Todoroki, Katsuki Bakugo, and Moonfish. Yes, they're still fighting in this episode, and it's just as insane and creepy with his giant freaking growing teeth. It's like Wolverine, except instead of claws, it's his teeth. That basically looks like, you know what? He's a combination of Wolverine and the Cenobites from Hellraiser. That's exactly what he is. And he's just so disturbing just the way he moves, but when Dark Shadow finally arrives, he just absolutely destroys him with like just one big smack, sending him flying against a tree, which is very satisfying. But all it takes is one small glow from Todoroki's fire and one little spark from an explosion from Katsuki, and boom, he is back to normal. The build-up to seeing Himiko Toga was also astronomical. I was really hoping it was going to pay off, and thankfully it did. She's a really creepy individual, and it looks like she's going to be a part of some very twisted love triangle with Deku and Ochaco. That's right, we can already see the beginnings of an intense rivalry in this episode, and she's pretty frigging messed up. I'm honestly not even really sure what her quirk is quite yet. She just seems to love stabbing people and sucking their blood out. She has this like weird apparatus that she wears that has like a syringe on one end, and she can like throw it into people and it'll start to suck their blood. Apparently they're trying to collect the blood of a couple of different people for some unknown purpose. But basically it's just an excuse to show how creepy this weird little vampire chick kind of is. That's kind of the vibe that I get from her. She's just a really weird, super happy and sadistic vampire. Not too unlike Harley Quinn from the Batman series. That and just, she really seems to get off on torturing these two girls, and there's a lot of intensity here, like when Tsuyu actually tries to save Ochaco by throwing her away with her tongue, only to get it cut in the process, and then the really epic moment where it looks like Ochaco's about to get stabbed by her, but she actually remembers all of the training that she remembered with Gunhead, and she actually manages to put her down. But this ends up being her downfall as Himiko Toga starts to get into her head, talking about her very specific crush, and it just gets really disturbing here. In the heat of the moment, Toga actually ends up stabbing Ochaco's leg and even sucking some of her blood out, but then suddenly the other heroes arrive and she decides that she doesn't want to die, but before she leaves, she gets one glance of Deku and absolutely falls head over heels in love. Basically, the shipping wars are about to begin. When Deku and the others are finally reunited with Ochaco and Tsuyu, this leads to what I think is probably the most epic scene of the entire episode, and the scene which just really gave me the biggest goosebumps from maybe the entire series. I love it because a lot of the times Deku can overanalyze things, and a lot of the times it's played for laughs. But in this episode right here, he just comes all full circle Captain America on everyone and realizes that even if they cut directly through the camp, if they run into any villains, with the group that they currently have, they have the extreme advantage. They're able to fully utilize and combine all of their abilities to the point where they could even maybe take down All Might. That scene was just perfect. So they start running through the forest when suddenly Mr. Compress arrives. Who's Mr. Compress? He's a brand new villain who's a magician, wears a creepy mask, and can transform people into little marbles to steal them away. That's basically his entire shtick, and he ends up running away after actually capturing Katsuki Bakugo. That's when Deku comes up with this crazy plan where Tsuyu is actually going to throw both Deku, Shoji, frickin' Shoto Todoroki, Ochaco's gonna make them light and throw them towards this guy as he's flying away, and at the last second, Ochaco is going to release them, bringing the regular gravity back so they end up slamming into this guy and plowing him right into the ground. And guess what? It works. It looks awesome, and it's maybe one of the best ways to end this episode is when it actually does happen, they end up landing in front of a couple of villains here, such as Dabi, Himiko Toga, and of course, everybody's favorite Deadpool clone, Twice, who ends the episode in a hilarious fashion, and man, what a wild ride. So what's the rundown on this episode of My Hero Academia? Yes, this was another great episode of the series. The consistent quality of the series always manages to surprise me. I'm really glad that they've decided to break up the series into seasons because it makes every episode shine just a little bit more, and this episode is another case for that. Incredibly well paced with tons of awesome action scenes, and the fact that they're bringing back characters that didn't get to do much in the previous seasons is great. Shoji was awesome in this episode. Even Yuga was kind of cool in this episode. There was a scene with him where Dabi and Twice were walking through the woods, and it looks like Dabi was about to capture him, but no, he managed to not piss his pants and not run away, and he held his ground the entire time, even though he didn't confront Dabi. It's a big moment for him in my book, because he's a character that's without a doubt far and away my least favorite character from the series, but still, I truly did love that moment. Even Mandalay and Tiger were able to defeat their respective opponents, with Tiger actually like wrapping up and contorting his body around Magne, and Mandalay just making a fool out of Spinner, who never really got to show off what his unique quirk actually was. I mean, Magne had magnetism and everything, but, you know, Spinner's basically just a lizard dude, and that's about it. Like, maybe he was going to spit acid or have, like, a tongue attack or something, but maybe that'd be too similar to Tsuyu Asui. But then again, we have Dabi, who uses blue fire, and we've seen fire techniques. The point is, I just wanted to see more from him, and hopefully we will get to see more in the future. There's also another new villain in a scene that appears in this episode I didn't even talk about. There's actually a Nomu who's out in the forest right now, and it's probably one of the creepiest looking ones thus far. Not only is it massive, hulking in blue, but it has the ability to summon these arms from its back, which all have a different weapon on its hand. Everything from swords and drills to a friggin' chainsaw, and it's chasing Momo and this other Class B student by the name of Awase, and they just manage to escape because it actually gets called back and decides to go back to its other team members, but not before Momo can actually create a tracker that Awase decides to put on its back. Good teamwork from him. I'm guessing his quirk is his ability to fuse things to people or things. I don't know. Class B's always been kind of strange, but I'd like to see more development from them, especially after the last episode with Tetsu. That being said, man, what a solid experience right here. Every single scene just exploded. I loved all the stuff with Fumikage, the look of his attacks, the way that they took down Moonfish was really satisfying and just big and impactful and great. Deku continues to really surprise me, though, with how incredibly resourceful he is and how just damned heroic he is. I mean, really, at the end of the day, he might be one of my favorite, like, anime protagonists of all time. There's an ultimate purity to him that's even different from characters like, say, Goku. There's something different about Deku, and seeing his growth and his influence on all of these characters has been an absolute joy to watch. I've really loved it. The Himiko Toga stuff was also really fascinating, if only because it's just going to start a big shipping war amongst the fan base. Like, who's Deku going to end up with? Himiko Toga or Ochako? Ochaco. We all know what's going to happen. But it's also going to intensify the rivalry of those two characters, and it's going to make it all the more sweet when they finally do have another confrontation. And I'm really hoping that Ochaco is going to clean her clock. It's just going to be really satisfying to see. But, you know, Himiko Toga and Dabi have been sort of like the mascots of this group. They introduced them first in the last season, and they seem to have a lot of prominence here as well. And it looks like they're going to have a big battle with them in the next episode. Mr. Compress getting destroyed at the end and slammed into the ground, just, again, purely such an epic moment with all three of the characters, just slamming him down right there. Just the surprise on Twice's face is great. And Twice is funny. I love him. I love how he flip-flops so much between what he's actually saying and what he's meaning. It makes him just such a bombastic and fun character, and definitely goes along with the theme of his character being that he's able to create clones and multiple things. Really, what more can I say? This episode was awesome. I really, really loved it, and that's why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. My Hero Academia Season 3 continues to thrill and surprise, and you need to check it out. If any of you guys did watch the episode, though, I really want to hear from you guys. Tell me what you thought about this episode, your favorite scenes, battles, moments. What did you think of the big introduction of Mr. Compress? What about Himiko Toga? And what do you hope to see from the rest of this current arc and beyond of My Hero Academia? Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more awesome anime reviews. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, stay down now, baby.